Hey y'all, and welcome to PolitiBrawl. My name is Brian, and Eli Crane does not hold back on this terrible witness who makes the audacious claim that there is no government censorship on the internet. This is wild. Let's dive in.
I want to start with you, Ms. Franks. I believe you said the government has the right to participate in expressing its viewpoint. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't, respectfully, Ms. Franks, I don't think that's what we're really talking about here today. We're not talking about the government expressing its viewpoints. What we're really talking about is when the government pays and uses taxpayer dollars to fund these entities that we're talking about here today that actually discredit some of these news sites and drives away their advertisers. Do you think that's fair as well?
What is fair is for the government to be able to fund projects and organizations that do certain things with those funds that may include competing in the marketplace of ideas, and they may be winning in the marketplace of ideas, but the government is not making those choices. And when certain news outlets lose in the marketplace of ideas, they may want to blame the government for that, but maybe they're just losers.
So, okay, Ms. Franks, do you think...
It's actually Dr. Franks.
What's that?
It's actually Dr. Franks.
Okay, Dr. Franks, sorry. Ms. Jonas here said that when she was looking at these entities and the organizations that they had blacklisted, every single one of them was a conservative-leaning organization. Do you think that's fair as well? Is that okay? Dr. Franks?
Use a different name, so I wasn't sure you were talking to me.
Yeah, I'm still talking to you. I'm still looking at you. I'm still talking to you.
Would you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, you seem to have a problem paying attention to the questions being asked of you today. I'll repeat it for you again. Do you think that it's okay that these entities that are blacklisting companies, all of the companies on the list that are blacklisted are conservative outlets?
Do I think that it is okay for a company, for a nonprofit organization to develop tools that offer rankings, in other words, offer speech of criticism, critical speech about certain businesses? Yes, I think that's okay because that is protected First Amendment activity.
So you think it's okay for the federal government to be using our tax dollars to basically, through a proxy, blacklist one side of the aisle? You think that's okay?
I do not, because that is not what is happening.
Really? How so?
Yes.
Then why are all the companies on the list, the blacklist, conservative groups?
I think that's something that conservatives would need to answer.
No, I think that's something you need to answer. Because we're talking about censorship here, and there's only one group of people being censored.
No one is being censored.
Miss Eunice here admitted that she's not even a Republican. She leans left, yet she's telling us that all of the companies on the blacklist are conservative groups. How do you square that, Doctor?
I don't have to square that because, as I said, the focus
I know, because you don't have to make any sense, do you?
May I answer the question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. The First Amendment has certain principles and certain rules. People may not like them. People may disagree with them. People may not like the fact that someone out there may say conservatives are all bad or liberals are all bad. The correct response to not liking that is to engage in your own speech, as is often happening here. It is not to say, oh, this is censorship, we're being silenced. It's simply to say, we disagree with what's being said here. Try to compete, and if you are good enough, maybe you'll win.
Miss Jonas, what do you have to say about what Dr. Franks just said?
First of all, I want to be clear that this wasn't just about NewsGuard and GDI. The government was funding hundreds, at least 300 tools and technologies that were designed to censor speech. Some of them weren't even pretending to censor foreign disinformation, quote unquote disinformation. Of course, that's a subjective term. So they were hosting COVID disinformation challenges where they were giving grants to companies who showed that they were the best at censoring COVID disinformation. COVID is not really a national security or foreign topic, even if it has some tinges of that. So this was about the government using its authority. The government can't use its authority, can't use its power, and can't use its money in order to censor views it doesn't like. It's the government, yes, it has a right to censor. To express its own views, but not to use those views to censor. That's where it stops. And the court expressly said that in Vulo recently, actually.
Mr. Weingarten, I'm going to allow you to comment on this exchange.
I'd just say briefly, we've heard a robust defense of the government's purported right to speak, which, as we've established, really looks like a right to censor. And the censors portrayed as the victims here, but American speech en masse has been censored by this censorship industrial complex on a slew of issues that expressly reflect protected political speech. And if a stop isn't put to it, we're going to lose this right in toto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Wow, the audacity. The audacity of this witness, a Dr. Franks, by the way, who made sure that she was called a doctor by Eli Crane. I don't fully blame her in this regard. When you have been through that academic rigmarole and been through that process, you do deserve to be called a doctor. But what you don't deserve in this case, madam, is the benefit of the doubt. When you are out here spewing the nonsense that, the censorship, as you call it, is just targeting people that are spewing misinformation. Maybe if the conservatives were better at competing in this space, they'd be winning. The reality is, however, we have had programs that were specifically designed to shut down anyone bringing up the Hunter Biden laptop story, which, as polling has suggested, could have shifted the entire narrative of the 2020 election. That has been proven and confirmed by not only former CIA officials, but also actual investigative journalists who have looked deeply into these issues. And ever since Elon Musk bought Twitter back in 2022, we have seen reporters actually have access to the Twitter files that duly prove that indeed this sort of censorship happened and would have continued to happen were it not fully exposed by good journalists like Matt Taibbi or by people like Elon Musk buying Twitter from out from under the left and the CIA's feet to begin with. And so, first off, this whole idea that the censorship industrial complex isn't a thing is nonsense. And that's what this witness, Dr. Franks, tries to make a point of right there at the beginning. And then she shifts into talking about, if it's being used against conservatives, maybe that's because they're just not good at the game. I call some major BS at being good at the game, because I do remember in 2022, we were banned in many conservative circles from using certain color codes in order to fundraise. If they weren't color coded properly under Google guidelines, those emails would be swept under the rug and they wouldn't be seen and they'd be thrown straight into the spam pile. Okay, same thing when I shifted companies in 2023, we had problems getting our content out there to people because Mark Zuckerberg didn't want any more political content out there. That is quite literally, by definition, some form of censorship. And now we need to move 9 months forward, because this video took place in 2024 around June. So it's about 9 months ago as of this filming in March. We have now seen a massive paradigm shift that is happening not only on the left, but also on the right. The right during the early 2000s used to be sort of iffy when it came to free speech. We were afraid of what was going to be exposed to children. We were afraid that it was going to ramp up terrorism. And unironically, we turned out to be correct. But we were afraid of outside foreign influences when those terrible influences were coming from our own doorstep. Enter 2014, right when the paradigm shift started happening and the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants were falling out of power, and it was now the rich white liberals who were now the people being catered to by the CIA, the FBI, what is essentially the deep state. And again, I hate using the phrase deep state, but sometimes the boot fits. And the reality is this. It is now 2025, and now Elon Musk has bought Twitter. And it's made it a fairly equal playing field for people wanting to get speech out there. The algorithm is quite literally designed, if you want to hear something, you're going to end up hearing it. That's the sad truth, but that's also fairer than what was going on beforehand when there was blatant censorship of anyone remotely on the American right. And then you now have a situation where, fortunately, Donald Trump did win his election and won that election in a borderline landslide, won all 7 of the battleground states. And now we're finding out more and more about just how deep this rabbit hole goes. Folks, the amount of censorship that is happening because of the CIA has been massive. And now we have the Kennedy files that have finally been released to the public, or at least a bunch of them have. And that's what, I think like 80,000 pages of this. Some of the stuff is still redacted, but it's funny to note just who gets listed where. You're starting to notice interesting little parallels with people like Agent Underhill, who just so happened to be part of a clandestine group inside of the CIA. And then his story gets very, very interesting, and how his relationship works with the former President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And ultimately, we're starting to notice a trend that wherever the CIA has its tendrils, it's really tough to uproot it and then get them to leave. Fortunately, this started happening back in 2022, and now the ball's rolling even further with a Republican Congress, a Republican Senate, and a Republican presidency, and hopefully at least a constitutionally minded Supreme Court that we will continue to protect the ideas of free speech. We're seeing the paradigm shift today that liberals are now once again talking about free speech in a completely different way than they used to. From the 1960s until the mid-2010s, they were all about the freedom of speech. But the moment they got their tendrils into power, they started limiting what you could see from the conservative point of view. That is no longer happening in this country, and the left can no longer deny that they weren't a part of that movement, that they weren't trying to censor your ability to see the reality of the situation, of what's actually going on in the world. They don't have that kind of control anymore, and they won't for a long, long time. Our First Amendment rights were, like this final witness said, basically on the precipice of being lost forever. Fortunately, we made the right decision in 2024. I think we have continued to make the right decision. And currently, we're watching the CIA and the deep state slowly retreat. And now we're seeing free speech actually being opened up, and the freedom of discussion, and the ideas that are winning. Well, let's be honest, folks. The conservatives right now have the momentum, and rightly so. And I'm going to enjoy seeing where the rest of this roller coaster takes us. But our First Amendment rights deserve to be protected in just about any way, shape, or form, and they were in danger of being lost forever. We made the right decision. Let's continue to make the right decisions going forward. So Eli Crane, thank you for exposing this nonsense from Dr. Franks. I have no idea how she had the gall to sit there and not lie to the American people, but definitely obfuscate the truth and the depth of the matter in front of Congress. That's just beyond the pale. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on PolitiBrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.